going to take some questions or comment. Yes.
What's anybody's motivation to do disclosure?
What's the government's motivation?
What's the government's? What's the ET's? What's in fact, except for our own psychic involvement?
I see that the government, let's speak of the government loosely, the government, whoever the people who have got control over the secret, I think they have no motivation. They have none. And I also think it's very possible that these other beings, let's call them ETs, if that's what they are, I don't think they have much motivation either. But it's going to happen anyway, because there's a third factor in this whole equation, that's us. So I think it's going to happen because I often think of it as the trajectory of our society. I think where we were 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we were a culture of horses pulling wooden carts, and that is what we were. And we go from that to telegraph, to radio, to automobiles and TVs and rockets and atomic bombs and computers and iPods and iPhones. And now we're moving, and this is all in 100 years. We're one generation away from your computer probably talking to you and telling you that it is a conscious sentient being. Whether it is or isn't truly conscious is irrelevant. It's going to seem like it. It'll have an IQ of 500. It won't need sleep. It won't need a cup of coffee in the morning to get it going. We'll have advanced nanotech, advanced 3D printing, quantum computing. I mean, like that, all instantly. And what that means is we, in one generation, have already developed a global communication with each other. In 10 years, we developed WikiLeaks, which is already yanking all kinds of hundreds of thousands of documents out, anonymous. All right, smartphones that have awesome capabilities. Where are we going to be in another 20 years? So what I'm convinced is that disclosure will never happen as a voluntary act by a government, ever. I think there's too much to lose, but it will happen when they're pushed to the wall, forced to say something. And the thing about disclosure is I don't believe it will be totally truthful. I think it'll be, look, the CIA has been managing this for 70 years. They're not going to walk away from the table just because, oh yeah, their little game was exposed. Of course not. They're going to try to continue to control the spin and parcel out the information. So what disclosure is not the end of anything. It's the beginning of a new stage in the battle for truth by people. But the difference will be that this topic will be on the table for public discussion.
Yes.
And it'll be a totally different situation.
Yes.
So that's the kind of
I'll add to that statement by Richard that I do not feel there'll be any final disclosure. What we're looking at is a series of orientations that we're going through.
Totally agree.
In 1995, John Mack and I were part of a quote-unquote government disclosure in Washington, D.C., where we submitted our field research in Africa, where young kids saw beings that were floating in the schoolyard and other places, and no big thing. This is part of their culture heritage. A lot of Native Americans accept the fact that we've got the Star Nations who are desirous to help Mother Earth survive the misuse of technology. So we've got to sort out, but the main thing in all of this is the consciousness of love that balances this. Otherwise, we're lost in the sea of data. The world starves for wisdom drowning in the sea of data.
Yeah.
Yes.
Duncan, any comments on disclosure?
Kind of disclosure in an offbeat way. Some of the research a number of people have been involved in came to something called the Montauk chair. It was this off-planet technology that had sensors all over the body. It was detecting the biofields. Part of some of the research went into anyone with a bit of training could connect up to this esoteric, this hardware was huge psychoactive hardware that could outrun the speed of light. Everyone here, our consciousness in a level of awareness can outrun any computer, anywhere, anytime. That's how incredibly connected we are. We get used to familiarity in this physical dimension. Recently I had awakening and I saw a lifespan of a person within 2.7 something seconds. And I started doing the math on this, like, holy mackerel, or if indeed that's a small slice, X amount of people, is that how slowed down we are and we get used to that?
So you're saying we're already, in a sense, beyond disclosure. We already are equal in a sense to these ET consciousnesses? It's just like this mass collective that has to catch up with who we think we are?
Sure,
Okay.
good job.
Thank
Thank you for helping me in my time of need.
I think we are in the process of disclosure. I think films like this, dialogues like this, is part of the ET agenda coming forward and making themselves known. Okay, Nita, yes.
It seemed to me that you were beginning to address the phenomenon of a coming disclosure by the higher beings who are friendly to us.
Much of our conversation has dealt around the quote-unquote phenomenon of the extraterrestrial, the IT, the ET, the identified extraterrestrials or the non-identified extraterrestrials, but there are still higher levels of what we would call the spiritual or the avatar type intelligence that are being seen in other parts of the world, particularly in areas of Africa and South America, areas where situations are very traumatic, and people, particularly spiritual people, are beginning to see apparitions and feelings of what could be called the energy of the Divine Mother, or Pachamama in the Peruvian South American tradition. They feel the sense that what is missing here in all of this science is compassion and love for life, and that this is the hidden strategy, as I had experienced it in 1973, that would basically upset the government control scenarios that are in place to put us all into a super chip of being under robotic control.
In a society that's supposed to be a democratic Republican system of government that is supposed to be responsive to us, the people, in which we can't get any information that's valid from our supposedly legitimate government about it, that's a problem. As far as I see, that's a very serious problem. And no matter what else, the other existential issues there are of these other beings that are here, which are significant for me, until we correct this egregious injustice, we're going to have a completely screwed up political system for as long as we keep moving into the future. So in other words, for me, disclosure is one key way for people to try to regain control of a political system that is supposed to be under our political control. And it's, I mean, we all know our politics are completely screwed up, and that we're developing a global-based totalitarian system of control. And it's going farther and farther away from people's control. And so I asked myself, what might be something that would shock this from going any further? And I feel like the disclosure of this reality is just maybe big enough that it might cause a real bump in that, and it might cause people to wake up and find out, how have you been lying to us all these years? Oh wow, there's this whole black budget structure. And so there may be this political reaction that might give us a chance of regaining control over our sovereignty.
Yeah.
What about the galactic government?
This was addressed by an interception of the ITN, which is a British news service, at 5:05 p.m. on November 26, 1977, where the radio communication channels were interrupted by a so-called extraterrestrial voice that said it represented what you would call a galactic government, or an advanced planetary society that we would call some type of galactic government, saying, quote unquote, put away your weapons of war. Now at that time, as I told Colin Andrews, who was in England at the time, I was in Mexico City, and I gave a interview to Novedades, which is like the New York Times. And the press was rather skeptical and critical about ET realities in Mexico. But I said, essentially, it's dealing with the change of consciousness. We must put away our weapons of war. The time to live together in peace is short. And at that time, the president of Mexico was visiting Jose Lopez Portillo, the president of Mexico. Israel, I should say, and Mexico were coming together. And I thought that was auspicious signs of things that would take place in the Middle East from space. Should peace not be resolved, there would be a terror in the rupture of countries in the Middle East that would get more and more and more serious.
So you're saying there is a galactic federation?
There, from all intents and purposes, from scholars and scientists and researchers who know the history, journals, and books, there has always been a recognition that there is a quote-unquote system of star nations or higher powers that represent a galactic source of intelligence. I'm not saying there's a cosmic teletype up there beyond the clouds that just simply issues these directives, but there is a movement to displace extraterrestrial forces that have been injurious to humanity on this planet.
I think the whole thing about 2012 was to reorientate us from a solar idea of the sun and its planets to a galactic understanding. So we are coming into an awareness that we're part of a galactic family. Any comments on that, Duncan and Richard? Duncan?
Yeah, I'd just like to address the 2012. Part of my research is to the different levels of the mind and the psyche, as to conscious, superconscious, down in the subconscious. And part of something back years ago when I was working closely with Preston Nichols, he was helping to deprogram some of the fellows in the military. He got down into the fourth level of subconscious and then nothing. They would just get down. It was this brick wall. And what we later validated to each other's satisfaction, what I know is the ego denial wall. It's a matter of process of part of us pull down the information to take it out of our face so we can move it throughout the day and get some sleep. Also, the building block of 2012, which has passed, is the same building block as the ego denial wall between the fourth and fifth subconscious.
So we
That's how connected we are, gang, in reality. Are you getting this? 2012 is the consciousness between the fourth and fifth level subconscious.
So
We're moving past that. We're moving all the process. We're actually getting down more into our subconscious. We're part of someone, the yogis can control their heart rate down to the fifth level, get down to sixth level where the fears and anger is, and down to the ninth and 10th subconscious level. And that is where your Sasquatch is, your interdimensional being, which is part of the closest thing to what most people call of the higher self before it comes in the earth plane. It's right in the middle of our mind function, totally insulated. And when someone starts to get into who they are, connected, go 18 inches either side, basically as a connected. Energy starts coming in through the head of the higher frequencies, it starts coming through the earth, and it actually starts creating a infinity sign. The body is in the center of your mind. 99% of the people spend their time in their mind. The idea is they're off center. Move your body foot and a half, and start relaxing, and you are the infinite self. Everyone here is infinity.
So, Duncan, you're saying 2012 marked the place of greater consciousness for all of us?
That's how we all move through the past 7 times physically that we've gone, and all our records have been erased. We're moving past that, gang. This is extraordinary. Get into your infinite self. Your body is your infinity. Try to relax and replace your body so you can connect up with the higher frequencies off planet, lower frequencies. Figure 8, heart, crosses in the chest here. We're already there. It's just a matter of catching up with ourselves.